What's going on, Seattle Seahawks fans? This is your boy James here, going to do your season prediction for the Seattle Seahawks this year. And this is going to be the first season, just like with the Falcons, with having their veteran quarterback and Matt Ryan leaving. Now we're going to be doing the Seattle Seahawks. Losing the Seattle Seahawks is losing a player like Russell Wilson is always something that's very hard to do after so many years of success with someone like him and being able to build off of the success after Russell Wilson leaves and having a newer quarterback in Drew Lock, who's kind of been a little bit under the radar, but kind of not anywhere near the talent that Russell Wilson was able to do to carry this football team to success. And with a coach in Pete Carroll, I think Pete Carroll is going to do everything that he possibly can to coach this team to be the best possible. But I also don't think they're a playoff team either, really, to be honest with you. But there are some good pieces to this team. I think they do still have some good offensive pieces. They have a decent run game. I think DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett can help carry this team out. I think they're both pretty talented receivers. I think the mostly of what's going to be the most difficult thing for the Seahawks to have success is the consistency in quarterback with Drew Lock, but we'll see what happens there. We don't really know if he's going to be the long-term answer for them, or who knows if there will be offseason trades and maybe Baker Mayfield might be going to that team later on in the season might help them, but we don't really know for sure what's going to happen. But this is our season prediction for the Seattle Seahawks. So let's go ahead and let's get started with what we've got. All right, so we're starting off with week one. The Seattle Seahawks start out on a Monday Night Football with Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos coming to town for a homecoming game. I think this is going to be a closer game than people think. I think Pete Carroll knows exactly the weaknesses that Russell Wilson does have, and I think he might be able to take advantage of that. But at the end of the day, I think the Broncos are just a slightly better team than the Seahawks themselves. So I think I'm going to take the Broncos to win on the road in Seattle. And that's actually really interesting to kind of see them actually win on the road, especially in Seattle, because Seattle has had a lot of success since Russell Wilson's debut with the Seahawks. It's very rare that the Seahawks lose in the month of September, but they've done it a couple of times last year. And I think this year's the year where they're going to lose at least one or two games, possibly in the month of September. So I'm going to take the Broncos to win that game in week one. Then week two, the Seahawks travel to face one of their division rivals in the 49ers. Last year, the Seahawks kind of got lucky with beating the 49ers last year. I think that some of those plays that they were able to get against the 49ers were just kind of luck plays, and that kind of got them to the victories over the 49ers. Um, well, I do think they will beat the 49ers probably again. I think in week two in San Francisco, I think they lose that game on the road because I think the 49ers are they're going to have a slow start to the season. But I think at the same time with the 49ers, I think they still do have a good enough team where they will get those wins and they will sneak their way into the playoffs. Whereas the Seattle Seahawks are kind of in like a slight rebuilding mode, but not totally because they still have some good pieces to their teams. It's just going to be a while until they find their next franchise quarterback. So I'm taking the 49ers to win their first matchup. And maybe later on in Seattle, I think I might take Seattle to win that game and kind of like a slight upset, but not really because it's a division game. But that's how I see the Seahawks with the 49ers in week two. Then I talked about it in week three. I think the Falcons they do have a possibility of being able to beat the Seahawks. But I think here though I'm going with the Seahawks because this Falcons team is in a revamp mode. They're in a rebuilding mode right now, and I think that's going to be really hard for them to come into Seattle and be able to beat them. And honestly, it's never really easy to beat Seattle in Seattle in that stadium. So I think the Seahawks will win that game. They'll start the first 3 weeks as being 1-2. Then you go into week four, you have the Seahawks, and they travel to Detroit and they play the Lions. I think the Lions are I think they're going to be better than they were a year ago. I don't think they're going to be a great team, but I do think they're going to sneak up on some teams this year and be able to beat them. And I think the Lions do. I think they have a possibility of being able to get that win over Seattle because I think because it's in the dome, it's inside with the Detroit Lions. I think Detroit actually plays better at home than they do on the road. So that's their kind of slight advantage. Would I be surprised if the Seahawks did beat the Lions on the road? No, not at all. I think it's very well possible. But I think with the Lions and being a good home team, I think they pull out the win there and kind of like a last second field goal touchdown possibly that's puts them up to success there. So I'm taking the Lions in that win. And then you're going to take on the Saints at New Orleans. I think the Saints are a low key good team this year. They should be able to beat the Seahawks. They don't. The Seahawks doesn't have anything really that matches up with the Saints defense. Although the Seahawks did play well against the Saints a year ago on defense, it's still I think with the change in quarterback, I don't think it's really and you're playing in New Orleans. It's really tough for the Seahawks to be able to win there. So I'm gonna take the Saints to win in Week 5 in the dome. Then you go into Week 6. You have the Arizona Cardinals playing in Seattle. I think Seattle takes the first game against the Cardinals. I don't think the Cardinals are as good of a team as people make them out to be, at least for this year. I think the Cardinals are kind of a mess right now in terms of the drama that's going on with Kyler Murray, and we don't really know exactly what's going on with DeAndre Hopkins. So I think the Seahawks win their first matchup in Seattle, and I think later on in the season, the Cardinals do win in Arizona. But usually the Cardinals and the Seahawks, they usually do play really good games with each other. So honestly, I really wouldn't be too shocked if either one of these games were that close with one another. So I'm going to take the Seahawks to win the first matchup, and then they lose in Week 9 in Arizona. Then Week 7, you got the Chargers. I'm taking the Chargers to win at home. The Chargers are just a far better team than the Seahawks, to be honest with you. They have a better coaching staff, in my opinion. That defense is revamped. They're getting a lot better on defense. And I think at that point in the season, I think the Chargers are going to be very hot on both sides of the ball, especially with that defense once they start gelling things together. So I'm taking the Chargers to win that game. Week 8, I talked about this when I did the Giants prediction video. I can see the Giants going on the road and beating the Seattle Seahawks, but yet again, it's very hard to beat the Seahawks in Seattle because of their crowd and how rowdy it really gets. So I believe I did pick the Seahawks to win in Seattle, but I really wouldn't be too shocked if the Seahawks actually lost to the Giants. So I can kind of see that game going really either way, but I'm taking the Seahawks to win that one because of the home field advantage. And then you go into Week 10, you play the Buccaneers in Germany. I'm taking the Bucs. That's not really a really good game for either team, to be honest with you. I think the Bucs just have a great offensive scheme that the Seahawks defense has no chance in being able to slow down. Then you're going into the bye week and you have a 3-7 record. So you're probably already going to miss the playoffs with that kind of record. But then you come off the bye and you play the Raiders at home. I think the Raiders are a good team this year because of all the offseason stuff that they've been doing. Their defense is actually very underrated. I think they have a good defensive line with Max Crosby. I think their defense can match up well. I think they can get pressure with Drew Lock. So I'm going to go with the Raiders to beat Seattle at home because I think Josh McDaniels and that offense that he's trying to build around Derek Carr and company is going to be able to help him be able to beat Pete Carroll and company in Seattle. Then Week 13, the Seahawks travel to Los Angeles to play the Rams. Again, I've said it before. I'll say it again. Nobody's really beaten the Rams this year. The Rams are just a too overpowering team. I don't see very many teams being able to match up really that well when you have Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp playing as hot as they are. So I think the Rams yet again will sweep the Seahawks. Then in week 14, you have the Carolina Panthers, and they take their way to Seattle. I can see this game really going either way, if I'm being honest with you. Um, and I do believe that I do have the Seahawks winning here. I think they because the home field advantage, and there's so many question marks about the Panthers. I don't quite honestly trust their offensive line to really be able to hold for Sam Darnold and be able to get the crucial plays that he needs. So, and I think it's a home game, so that kind of makes a big difference for this team. So I'm taking the Seahawks to win that game in Seattle. And then with the 49ers, I did pick the 49ers to win in week 2, and I think the Seahawks do avenge that loss, and I do think they will win at home on Thursday Night Football. Then week 16, the Seahawks travel to play the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs should win that game, honestly. I think it's a mixed match. Patrick Mahomes should have a field day against the Seattle secondary. And then you go into the 17th week of the season. You have the Jets traveling to Seattle. I think this game could honestly be a trap game for the Seahawks. I don't think really neither team is going to make the playoffs this year, to be honest with you. But I think the Jets really have had a much better draft than the Seahawks. But I think one thing that's really keeping them back is the coaching aspect of things and the organization of the Jets that kind of prevents for me to picking them. So I believe I did pick Seattle to win in Seattle. So I think I'm going to continue on with that. I think Seattle is just they're not a great team, but they're a very good home team. And with that crowd and that loud noise that they do have, it's going to be very hard for the Jets and like a young quarterback like Zach Wilson to come in and be able to blow the doors off of the Seahawks. So I'm taking the Seahawks to win that game against the Jets. But I think it's going to be a sneaky low scoring game because I feel like that Jets defense is going to be able to contain Pete Carroll and that rebuilding offense. So overall, you're looking at the end of the day, you're looking at a 6-11 record, which really isn't a terrible record. I think this is kind of despite with after you lose Russell Wilson. I mean, I think this is a nice record though, and I think it kind of sets up for success in the future. So that's something to be looking forward to. So I think they'll be 6-11. They'll be 2-4 in the division. Yeah, I think this is a good. I think this can be a decent Seahawks team if they can get everybody healthy at the right time. But I don't expect them to be a playoff team. I think they are going to finish last in their division. Be honest with you. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. And then afterwards, that should be it with that. Thank you guys for watching. And then for the next NFC West team we'll talk about, we'll do the Arizona Cardinals. So I hope you all stick around for that.